Hey, everybody, welcome to today's episode of the What Worked For You show. Today, I'm honored to have a guest who he is worldwide, and I mean worldwide as in his message is in 180 countries. There's only a little bit more than 190, so he will probably be everywhere soon unless they've never heard of the internet, but I'm sure they will be there shortly. So, global top 100 podcaster, 2,100 plus episodes, runs a company called Next Level University. That's business coaching, business mentoring, helping people understand how to succeed in business, not just in the business piece, but all around as they touch multiple aspects of life. So let's dive into here from our guest, Alan Lazaros. I hope I got your last name right. How are you?
I am good. Thank you so much for having me. I've been very much looking forward to this, and I never ever forget that it was crickets in the beginning. So I'm very grateful to have a platform to talk into anyone's life, honestly.
Perfect. Well, let's start with what you just said, because I think that's a great start right there. We'll pause my question. I like yours. Crickets to start. Very common issue when people are starting business, podcasts, whatever it is. What did that mean for you? Walk us through.
Well, the metaphor that I use, I just started a podcast called Business Growth University, and it's helping business owners similar to what you're doing, which I really appreciate because I used to be so naive that I thought everyone should be an entrepreneur, everyone should be a business owner, and I no longer believe that at all. I actually think the majority of people probably shouldn't. If you're risk averse, if you want any level of quality of life, you probably shouldn't start a business, at least in the first several years. Because it's so unfortunate that there's something called a survival bias where now I'm on podcasts all over the world. I'm very, very grateful. And I will never lose sight of where I came from. I came from very humble beginnings. But I'm 36 now. I've been grinding for a decade. And honestly, in some ways, my entire life I've been grinding. And it's really easy to hear people at the tail end of their career talk about success principles when in the beginning it was nothing but work. And so a lot of people say, well, I want to start a company because I want more free time. And that's not at all how it works, at least not for the first decade, unless you have a ton of money and you're investing and that whole thing. But at the end of the day, when I talk about crickets, I use Coca-Cola and Sam's Cola as an example. I always say everyone's going to choose Coca-Cola because no one knows who Sam is. Sam is Sam Walton. He started Walmart and he has Sam's Club. But you're always going to choose Coca-Cola over Sam's Cola because the market is certainty driven. And so in the beginning, no one knows who the hell you are. You have no credibility. You haven't earned your stripes. It's kind of like earning your black belt type of thing. You're a brown belt and no one cares. And that's the truth. And if you can't make it through those early tough years, you're in a lot of trouble. And I coach business owners, so I'm not just talking. I have 20 clients currently. One of them is 4 times a week. And they're all business owners in their own right, and the challenges that they go through behind the scenes are just really, really tough.
So this is a interesting point because you have a few classes of people. Now let's preface this because social media, of course, on Instagram, one of my coaches says there's thousands and thousands of billionaires, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands.
Yeah. In real life,
The
there's
real
only
number is something
3,400.
like, yeah, the real number is much, much smaller. So
3,400, I think, last time I
yeah,
checked. Yeah.
poking fun at Instagram, but
And how many of them are self-made? That's another question, right?
that's a
Not
whole other
generational
thing.
wealth. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. So, but what about the business owner? So you've got the business owners that are starting and they're trying to get there, trying to create success. But then you have business owners that have a wealth of experience. They're good at what they do, they understand it, and now they go online. And it's a struggle because it's like, WTF, what is this? Right? They know they're good, they've got clients, they've had success, but online, it's like they feel like they're going back to square one and they
Yeah, it's
hate
the
it.
Wild West. Yeah.
Yeah. So what's your message to those? Because there's a number of entrepreneurs that would fall in that category.
Well, so I had several mentors. I always used to playfully joke, if you want a therapist, you probably need coaches and mentors. If you have coaches and mentors and you want coaches and mentors, you probably need a therapist. So I was the second one. But I had dozens of coaches and mentors in my life, some in corporate and some after. And one of them is someone who is on the board of directors of, I don't know, probably 5 companies at this point. He was the CEO, technically COO, because the founder didn't want to give up the title, but of a billion-dollar robotics company that I worked for in my early 20s. And he and I would get dinner and lunch together. And I would ask him all these questions. And he didn't understand the internet very well. And what I mean by that is the consumer marketplace. So he was always business to business, industrial automation, that kind of stuff. He was also the CEO of a company called Astrodyne. They do satellite power supplies. But anyways, so to answer your question about the Wild West on the internet, the 21st century is all about the internet, but a lot of the wealth that was built in the past was real estate, tangible goods. And in the last 30 years, Google went from a garage to a global, I don't know what they're doing, 350 million a year, 350 billion a year now, something like that. I know Walmart in 2024 was the largest gross revenue. It was 528 billion in a single year. And so these numbers get really crazy and they get really big, and the world has changed more in the last 30 years than the previous 300. And so for the older folk, and again, I don't mean that disrespectfully because I'm a millennial, I know you're in the older generation, there's 8 billion people on the planet, there's 5.65 billion people on the internet, and that's growing exponentially now that Starlink exists because everyone can access internet from anywhere on the globe now. And so it's probably 6 billion now. Last time I researched it was probably 6 months ago. But the internet is the future. The 21st century is the future. I'll never forget a conversation I had with someone who was old school. He said, well, nowadays, Alan, the only way to make money is real estate. And I didn't have the courage to say it at the time, but I thought in my head, that's got to be the dumbest shit I've ever heard. Because tech companies are obviously the most successful companies in the world. So tech and the internet is the future. And obviously real estate, you can make a lot of money. I understand. I coach a lot of real estate people. I'm not saying that's bad, but the future is the internet, digital assets, cryptocurrency, Web3, virtual reality, augmented reality, all these different things. And so for the older generations, they still have this idea that you're going to go to a building still. And I think that's going away quicker than they realize. Robotics is coming, all that kind of thing. So I don't know if that answers your question, but this mentor of mine, he didn't understand the value of social media. He didn't understand the previous generation. And he's going to be very successful still, but he's definitely the past, not the future, if he doesn't change his mindset. And I think that's one of the reasons he got dinner with me is I think he wanted to learn from a millennial who, grew up with Google.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And when you get to like I'm Gen X, so I'm kind of on the tail end of it, but those on the head of it, closer to the boomers, it is fascinating to see how you'll see people embrace it and then some people resist it and everything in between. And it's interesting because when you're coaching, and what I've told people, and I've coached people in real estate, I'm like, be careful of what you hear or which guru, because at the end of the day, everyone only has X amount of viewpoint, right? Like nobody knows everything. So you gotta figure out, is someone's message in line with what you're trying to, and I don't mean like, are they telling you what you want to hear, but are they in a world that truly is aligned with what you're going for? Because
Yeah.
it may look the same, but it not be the same at all. This is very common in real estate. You've built a global podcast, 2,100 episodes. What is the message? What's your primary message that has the best chance of alignment when you're talking to people in so many countries?
Fundamentals. The all of us, different contexts, different goals, different core values, different countries, different ethnicities, different strengths and weaknesses, different intellectual levels, different EQ and IQ. And so the fundamentals work for everyone though. And what do I mean by the fundamentals? They're principles. There are certain principles. So The Compound Effect is a book by Darren Hardy, and it's my favorite, second favorite book of all time. I used to say first book. My favorite book is Rationality by Steven Pinker. And when I would recommend these books, I think people thought that I thought Darren Hardy or Steven Pinker were great. Honestly, I don't even think they're necessarily that good of writers. I just think the concept is unbelievable. So rationality is accurate thinking, objective thinking. I'm a math modality of thinking computer engineer guy. So for me, accuracy is everything to me. I mean, how many numbers have I spit out even in this conversation? Most people don't even know. I saw a Facebook post. We're heard in over 230 countries. Well, sir, you're lying because there's only 195 countries. Read a freaking book. I'm joking. But ultimately, it's so hard for me to see the nonsense on the internet because people are so misguided. And that's actually why I started Next Level University, because we are so alarmingly boring compared to the nonsense you see on YouTube. And if you look at Gen Z and Gen X, the YouTube is what cable TV used to be. And it's unfortunate that most of it is just absolute nonsense. I mean, the whole fitness industry, I was in the fitness industry for a while. Everyone's on steroids, but acting like they're not, and trying to sell you a supplement when in reality, weight training is actually what, the fundamentals of sleep, hydration, nutrition, training, mobility, breathwork, supplementation, like those things work. But the whole industry focuses just on supplementation because that's what makes money. And so it's, unfortunately, it's a gift and a curse. The internet, started getting big 30 years ago. And we started to, now you don't have to go to the library or get an encyclopedia to look things up. You can chat GPT it or Google it, which is unbelievable. However, now everyone on the internet can act like an expert when they're really not. And it turns out they actually don't know that much. That's been really alarming for me because as an engineer, if you try to make decisions based on false data, you're basically going to destroy your project or your circuit or your computer. So to me, if you see yourself, others in the world inaccurately, you can't make effective choices. I use the self-driving car as a metaphor. And so NLU is what you'll never learn in school but desperately need to know, and it's built on what we know is true. Like gravity is 9.8 meters per second squared. We're certain of it. I'm also certain that being consistent is important for success. I'm also certain that hard work and work ethic and humility are critical. I also am certain that you have to learn every single day. I'm also certain that if you don't use it, you lose it. I'm also certain that if you start a business for more free time, you are screwed. Like there's certain things you can be certain about, and there's so many other things outside of our control. And so control the controllables and focus on the fundamentals, but they're not sexy. They're not fun. They're usually big mirrors that no one wants to look in because statistically speaking, you can look at the data. The majority of people will not be successful. The large majority of people will fail. And that's the way it is in every industry. And I think it's arrogant to think that you can watch YouTube videos and win in business. I think it's humble to work as much as possible and learn as much as possible and get a therapist and get a mentor and work with people who have done it before and get around people that make you uncomfortable on the ego level. I think that's where real success lives. I always say I know when someone's growing when they're sad. Real growth is usually sad because it's basically realizing Santa Claus isn't real over and over again.
Yeah. Well, I'm on the right track. I have plenty of sad days. Every day I'm sad. So I appreciate the reminder. But you said something that I really appreciate about, and when you're talking about fundamentals, I always go back to this T-shirt I used to have of Michael Jordan when I was a kid. And it was like the fundamentals never change. And it was an image of Jordan. And this is back when the Bulls were still playing. Yeah. Now we look back and I'm like, has anybody changed the NBA the way Michael Jordan did? No.
The answer is no.
LeBron's pretty good, right? Kobe was amazing.
Steph Curry.
Right? Like they're great players, but then there's Jordan. And the conversation changes. It's a totally different conversation.
Yeah.
But he always talks about the fundamentals. He talks about all the shots he took that he didn't miss. Mm-hmm. He talked about he never, he had that comment about Republicans buy shoes too, and not to say politics, but even outside of basketball, he already had that business mind. Hey, don't go alienating potential customers.
Yeah.
And has served him well, right? And to this day, he keeps it very neutral. He keeps the private, and It's all just fundamentals of sport, business, life. And it's powerful. It's super powerful. So then let me ask you, just piggybacking off of that, so many people talk about helping others reach the next level. You effectively built a university around this concept.
Mm-hmm.
What made your approach different?
The engineering mind. I didn't know this originally. I think I came in as a naive 26-year-old who was just obsessed with personal development. Jim Rohn, Zig Ziglar, Les Brown, Tony Robbins, Stephen Covey, every book, every course, and then you just realize, oh, okay. So those are all useful, and a lot of them are intangible. Like, you can do anything you set your mind to. No, you can't. I can't beat LeBron James at basketball. You need to be honest. I help people reach the next level by helping them see themselves, others, and the world more accurately. So when someone thinks they're a great speaker and they're not, they need to go work on their speaking. Why would someone who's not a great speaker go work on their speaking if they already think they're great? So my coaching, I just got a new client. His name's Max. And I said, brother, this coaching isn't for everyone, because I'm going to basically have to show you every weakness you have. People do not fail in business because they don't believe enough in what they already believe. They fail in business because they have massive blind spots, myself included.
Yeah.
So you have to reveal those blind spots to people. There's people who think they're really good looking that aren't. There's people who are really good looking that think they're ugly. There's people who are out of shape that think they're in shape. There's people that are in shape that think they're out of shape. It's called body dysmorphia. And that's a metaphor for, this is the best way I can describe it. I help people get to the next level by reprogramming them consciously, subconsciously, and unconsciously, helping them reprogram themselves to think accurately about themselves, others, in the world, because a self-driving car needs three things. It needs an accurate current location, self-awareness. It needs an accurate destination location, which is a goal that's actually achievable. And it needs updated data on the terrain. So you're old enough like me to remember the Garmin and how you have to bring it inside, update it with a USB port.
Right.
You couldn't get where you wanted to go because it didn't have accurate updated roads. So you're driving off a cliff thinking it's a road. And that's what most people do in life. And then they blame the world, when in reality, it's their own inaccurate thinking that is making terrible choices. If you think you're going to lose weight with some supplement instead of exercise and calories in versus calories out and the law of thermodynamics, you just are wrong. I think the majority of us are not successful because we're just inaccurate. It's not personal. And as a computer engineer, I come off like an asshole. Pardon my French if I'm not allowed to swear, by the way. I want to be respectful, but
We're
you gotta
raw
bleep that
here.
out.
We're raw.
Okay,
It's all
well,
good.
I'll be respectful. But ultimately, I come off unkind because I was the kid in high school who was the math guy who, a girl would say, do I look fat in this? And I'd say yes at level 6 out of 10, because I didn't understand that no one actually wants truth.
Right.
When I ask, I really do want what you really think. But if you're wrong, I don't want you to tell me, because most people are giving you feedback that's just inaccurate, right? I mean, how many people do you know that think they're in great shape because they were a football player in high school? They're just delusional about themselves. And delusion creates poor choices. Poor choices creates failure. And so ultimately, the fundamentals are accurate thinking. And I don't think people care about accurate thinking enough, because our feelings get hurt. It sucks to admit that you're out of shape, but that's the first step to positive change.
Yeah. So this is a key thing you're talking about. We live in a world where blame is the default, right? Which, you're giving your power away at that point, right?
100%.
You're certainly not, and I like the way you said it, fundamentals, big mirror that no one likes to look in. I wrote that. It's like, ooh, that's a good title right there. And so,
Nice.
but this idea of really knowing the truth. I feel like that is when you really meet someone for the first time. And what I mean by that is everyone, and I'll use real estate as an example. You go into a deal together with someone and some kind of two people working on it together. Everyone's happy at the beginning. Something goes wrong. That's when you start to figure out how the people respond is when you start learning what it is. And very quickly you start learning what is people's tolerance for truth. And I agree with you. I think it's very low. And in business, that's catastrophic. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, that's exactly it. What is your tolerance for truth? That's actually very well put. Because so my business partner and I were bodybuilders, and he did a bodybuilding show. He won his show. I did 3 shows. And my first show I lost. I came in 5th. Second show I thought I'd win the first one and I lost. The second one I thought I'd lose and I won. And I won the overall. And there's a lesson in this because I came in humble. I had a posing coach. I came in humble. Whereas the first one I came in cocky without knowing it. Delusional. Not crazy delusional, but a little bit delusional. And he tried to tell me. He tried to say, Alan, you're fat, dude. Like, I'm not trying to be mean. You're not going to win the show. And a lot of people would say that that's toxic, but he actually cares about my goal. He was kind enough to be cruel enough to tell me the truth.
Yeah.
And he was right. And I find it fascinating that still to this day, Kevin and I, he's my business partner, and we're big on health, wealth, and love. And so people say, you guys are in such great shape. Like, why do you keep calling yourself out of shape? If you saw us in our mid-20s, you would understand. Because right now, people see me, they go, oh, you're in great shape. Listen, there are levels to this game. And I'm telling you right now, the old me would eat me. Okay? But no one knows that. They're comparing to them. They're like, well, if you think you're out of shape, you must really think I'm out of shape. Well, what if I do? It's all based on standards. And so the level of truth you can handle is going to dictate the majority of what you can achieve externally. Whether or not you'll be fulfilled or happy is a different discussion. But when it comes to the Michael Jordan mindset, like you mentioned, it's nothing but truth. It can't be anything other than accurate truth. Like, if you suck, you have to own it. If you're great, you have to own it. And everything in between. I'm a stronger speaker now, but the only reason is because I realized how bad I was. And I've done this, 3,000 times between my podcast and other podcasts. And so I was a computer engineer who would go give speeches and I would bomb. And everyone would love Kevin and hate me. And I didn't understand because I'm smarter than he is. But no one cares how smart you are, especially not when you look like a Ken doll. That's a lot of truth. Alan, you look young, so no one takes you seriously. You look like a Ken doll. There are no genius Ken dolls, so everyone assumes you're an idiot unconsciously. Like, that's a lot of truth. But I have to know that going into a business interaction, otherwise I won't be taken seriously. And so you will succeed to the level of difficult truth you can handle. No, women don't like short men, right? No, men don't like typically girls to be taller than them. Like, these are hard truths that we all know unconsciously, but we all want to pretend is different than it is. And I'm not saying, people say don't judge a book by its cover. I'm with you. I agree. Don't unfairly judge people, but people do. You better have a good book cover. Because trust me, I've spent too much of my life trying to make it different than it is, and it doesn't work. And at the end of the day, these are just, I really do believe the best metaphor for success in life is realizing that the Santa Claus is not real, the Tooth Fairy isn't either, the Easter Bunny isn't either, and none of that was really real. And it was basically fairy tale land, and it's time to grow up. Now, I'm all for imagination and vision and what's possible and all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, what's the difference between being a professional and being an amateur? Being a professional, you have to face every hard truth. If you're not good looking, that's okay. You got to own it. You got to understand the implications of that. If you are good looking and no one's going to take you seriously like me, you got to know that and own that. If you make other people insecure, you got to know that going in. If you don't make anyone insecure, maybe you're not coming correct or dressing nice enough. Like there's a lot of, and to me, it's all math and science. And so it comes off very cold, but it doesn't change the fact that if you take a right off a cliff when you think it's a road, you're going to keep driving off a cliff. And the truth is, it's a blind spot that you just don't want to face. My dad died when I was 2. My stepdad left when I was 14. I lost 3 families by the time I was 14 years old. I had nothing but adversity for the beginning of my life, and people came to me and said, these are the best years of your life. And I said, God, I hope not. And so my trauma response, fortunately for me, was aim higher, work harder, get smarter, and to be a giant social coward, which I didn't learn until my 30s how cowardly I was. I never could have shared any of this in my, mid 20s because I was just a chameleon trying to fit in and not being abandoned. So, but all this stuff, none of that's fun. You're not going to talk about any of this at the Thanksgiving dinner table. Most people stay on the surface. They don't want to talk about real stuff, and unfortunately that's what holds us back. Yeah.
No, I love it. And I tell people I'm not very good at small chats. So I'm definitely the guy that's like, oh, we just met. Let's go deep. And you're like, who are you? It doesn't matter. Let's go deep.
I assume your social life struggles.
Yeah, I don't. My message on social media is I don't do fluff. I'm not a real estate guru, but if you just want the truth, then I can help you with that.
Love it. Nice.
And,
Yeah.
and
Eventually, you just realize it. I can't. Let me just tell you how it really works, right?
Exactly. And so we're going to come back to that in a moment. You alluded to my next question, and you were talking about your youth when you lost your father and then more challenges along the way. And then you almost lost your own life, is what I saw preparing for the show around 26, I think I saw.
Yeah.
In that moment, you're 26 years old, and I love the way you said it. God, I hope this is not the best years of my life. I love that you said that.
High school was terrible. You think I look young now, Frank?
So, but now you're 26. What was the shift at that point, going through that experience? And if you want to share details about experience, fine. If not, it's okay. The key is, what was the shift?
The shift inside of me was just massive regret. And again, another thing that a lot of people don't have a good relationship with. I feel like I have a good relationship with regret. I think regret is your highest self tapping you on the shoulder saying, hey, come on, you're better than that. You're better than that. You knew better and you still didn't. Or, well, now you know better. So we can all, I always use this in my speeches. I say, raise your hand if you can think of something really stupid you did in high school. And every hand goes up. Every hand goes up. And I said, I'm thinking of mine, right? Everybody got one? I said, raise your hand if you would never, ever, ever do that same thing again. And every hand goes up. And I say, why? Right? Why? You are now more aware of the long-term potential consequences of that terrible choice. That's what growth is. So what shifted in me at 26, this is a second chance my dad never got because he died in a car at 28. In 1991, suddenly. And the hard truth for me was I have not been living a life to my true potential. I was successful, and I really was, right, statistically speaking, but I didn't try that hard. Like, I got straight A's in high school. I was definitely gifted. You're not allowed to say that, but for sure. And I just was resting on talent. So I made $180,000 a year in corporate. I was partying too much and too often. I grew up in a household with a lot of partying. My mom and stepdad loved to party. Dot-com bubble, 90s, Massachusetts. I mean, it was wild times. Everybody had money in the 90s. I mean, it was wild. And again, I say everybody loosely, not everybody, but it was really something. The dot-com bubble was something. I remember being a kid going, what the hell is going on here? Holy crap, holy, right? My stepdad worked for a company called AGFA. They did hospital computers during the dot-com era. So we just were swimming in it, right? We had a yacht. When he left, he took all that with him, including his entire extended family. So we went from a yacht to I don't have cable. I get free lunch at school because our income is so low. My mom trades in her BMW for a little Honda Civic. Like, how are we going to keep the house in the family type of thing? But anyways, so, which was good. That was good. That was humble pie. And so to answer your original question about the car accident, it was all the humble pie I needed. And this is the way that I describe it. I hope that this is helpful for everyone out there. We all have these circles of the ego. The outer layer is what you want other people to believe about you. This is your persona or your perception or your status, your job title. And we all have one, so I'm not making it wrong. Then you've got the next layer in, which is what you want to believe about you. This is self-delusion, self-deception. Some people are better than they really want to believe, and they think they suck. Other people think they suck, and they're actually better. It's a whole thing. And then the inner circle is who you really are. Who and what you really are when no one's watching. And that car accident collapsed all three circles. And for the last 10 years, because I believe that you cannot be fulfilled with a big ego. You can be very successful with a big ego. I mean, look around. But you can't be fulfilled with a big ego. And what I mean by an ego is what you think you are versus what you really are. So you, Frank, I can tell, and I sized you up the moment we met, I have a filter for certain men that I won't spend any time with, and you made it through the filter.
Oh, well, thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. You're someone who is pretty sincere and genuine, and you don't have a huge ego. And we're not going to do this the whole time, you and I. You're also older than me. A lot of older men have trouble with me because who's this know-it-all 36-year-old, right? So, and I get it. They're just insecure. But that's what happened is the car accident. I faced mortality. It was the second chance my dad never got. I hadn't reached even a fraction of my true potential. I drank too much and too often. I had too many freaking friends. I spread myself way too thin. And I just didn't have a lot of purpose and passion. And I was successful externally, but not internally fulfilled. And I just knew I have to turn this around. I got to turn this around. This is 10 years ago. I found personal development, self-improvement, personal growth, mental health. I got a therapist. And I just worked on myself every day since. And it's, at the end of the day, people actually like me a lot less now, unfortunately. I used to have a lot more friends when I was unhappy. Misery does love company, unfortunately. But my life in real life is way better than it used to be. So much, in fact, actually, that a lot of times in public mediums, I actually dial it down now. Whereas in the past, I was miserable pretending to be happy. Now I feel like I'm unbelievably fulfilled to a ridiculous extent. I mean, singing and dancing in the morning with my partner. And a lot of times you just come off pretentious when you are too much for people. So a lot of times I'll just stay centered and stoic, but yeah.
And we live in a world where it's not too hard to use your words, too much for people. Not because of anything you did, but because of what you said a moment ago. Misery does love company. It's like, oh, wait a minute, they're too happy. I can't handle that. No. So
Yeah.
let me ask you, because and you alluded to this earlier, you were an engineer, computer engineering. I used to be an IT guy, so we have that in common. And so, but the engineering mindset, very analytical, very left brain, can be kind of conflicting with right brainers at some times, right? That get heavy on the emotion. So that's kind of a learned skill. Were you an engineer through your 20s, and at what point did you say, let's start a podcast?
Yeah. I've always been a math modality of thinking man. I've coached now for 10 years. I just crossed my 10,000 hours not that long ago, 10,959 hours of coaching, training, and podcasting. It took me 10 years. And the reason I'm saying that isn't to brag. I uncovered a lot through all that. All different industries, all different backgrounds, all different people all over the world, all different cultures, all different job title. I mean, it's been cool. It's been really cool for me. It's been my ultimate science experiment to study human beings. And when you have that many people from that many countries, you have a big statistical sample set so you can see where you fit. I am like a super freaking weirdo. Super weird. I mean, it is, and I was so scared of that. So I used to manufacture belonging by basically acting like an idiot when I'm not really. A lot of people that are really, really, really high IQ, they actually pretend to be dumb because you don't really get along with anyone. And most people are
Yeah.
actually really insecure about their intelligence. So when they're around someone who is far more intelligent than them, they're constantly tiptoeing because they don't want to be found out. Most people don't know that much, and they don't want anyone to find that out, right? And I'm like studying Stephen Hawking and Einstein. It turns out no one's even read Einstein's theory of relativity. I never used to know that. I used to think, oh, like everyone knows that. No, they talk like they know it, but no one's actually read it, right? So I'm that weirdo. And so I would manufacture belonging, but my point of this is I uncovered four modalities of thinking. To my awareness, no one has, I've looked and I don't know if it's me who came up with this. I would say uncovered. I uncovered this. The first one is the rarest, and it's mathematics, rationality, numbers, statistics, equations, and formulas. That is mine by far. Everything is numbers for me. Everything. That's why I've already, 1991, my dad was 28. I was eighth in my class, 3.92. My girl, like everything is numbers. Emilia, when I first met her, my future wife, she said math and memory. And I was like, what do you mean? She said, your math and memory is your superpower. I can watch a movie 3 times and memorize the whole thing. I don't understand why. It's just always come naturally. So anyways, mathematics is mine, which to your point, the left brain thing, no one really likes you. It's not, they don't mean not to, they just don't know why you sound so certain. It comes off so arrogant.
It sure does.
When I say I'm going to build a multi-million-dollar business, that comes off very arrogant to someone who doesn't actually know how to do it. But when you know exactly how to do it and you calculate every step, you actually are certain. And so Kevin, my business partner, is not a math thinker, and we had our 100K month this month, first 100K month. And he was like, dude, oh my God. And I didn't react at all. And he's like, brother, this is like a big deal. And I'm like, Kev, I already calculated this years ago. It's awesome. Congratulations, man. But I'm actually focused on next year already. And you're not allowed to talk like this because then people hate you. But the point is some people are actually calculating things. Steve Jobs was calculating everything in advance, everything. That's why you can watch him in 2002 talk about the podcast industry 20 freaking years ago. Some people actually do know the future. Robots are coming. Like everything is. So here's what I've learned. I have to be the one to share that and not be such a coward because I don't need the credit, but I do need the credibility. And what I started learning as CEO is everyone thinks I'm out of my mind. And in 30 years, everything I'm predicting will happen, but I don't need you to believe in me then. I need you to believe in me now, right? So anyways, math modality of thinking is by far the rarest. You are socially awkward. No one likes you. You don't know how to communicate. And it's the engineers of the world. It's just a struggle bus. You're a super nerd. All right. The most common modality of thinking is conversations, words, and concepts. I do okay with it. I've worked on it. Most engineers, trust me, I was a product manager. I had all the responsibility, none of the authority. I talked to manufacturing, the engineering, all this stuff. Engineers, I can talk to engineers all day. No one else understands what they're saying. Optimal stopping problem and cost value analysis. Like no one even knows what they're talking about, right? And I can speak engineer and I can also speak average. And you're not even allowed to say average. Someone has to be average, right? It's like a statistical bell curve. All right, so
normal.
words, concepts, and conversations is the most common modality of thinking. Most people think in words, concepts, and conversations. So when I say dog, there's a certain emotional response. Some people have good experiences with dog. I'm a dog person. I'm a cat person, all that stuff. Then the next one is vision, images, and pictures. These are the visionaries of the world. That's my second one for sure. And this is when I say dog, you picture a dog. And we all have all four, by the way. But we have one really big one and one really sucky one. And I'll give you my really sucky one in a second. The fourth one, women are better at. It's vibe, energy, frequency, intuition. I was so bad at vibe, it's not even funny. I grew up in a very low vibe environment. I will playfully refer to some of it as white trash. Okay? I didn't know. I had no idea vibe. Emilia taught me vibe. And now it's so obvious. You ever meet that person who's dressed nice but they're low vibe?
Sure.
Got it. Wolf in sheep's clothing. Right? They're full of shit. I never used to know. I was all calculated. It's like, oh, okay, they make this much money. They must be smart. Not at all. Especially not in real estate. Holy crap. And again, I'm not trying to be mean. It's just there's a lot of real estate agents that don't know anything that are really successful because they pretend they buy the Beamer, the whole thing. So at the end of the day, most of this is controversial. The point is we all have all four, but we have one really big one and one really bad one. Most people's really bad one is numbers. Oprah Winfrey, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, Tony Robbins, all these people, they have an engineer in their corner. They do. My business partner's name is Kevin. Kevin is unbelievable with people. He's an unbelievable communicator. He's the chief sales officer of the organization. Everyone loves Kevin. Everyone. The first thing you'll do when you meet Kevin is, great, dude. That is not what you say about me. That's okay. All right. What you say about me is smart or intellectual or analytical or whatever. You make up something. With Kev, what I realized is that he doesn't have a math modality of thinking, and he is really good at communicating with other people who also don't. There's a great book called Algorithms to Live By, A Computer Scientist's Approach to Decision Making. World-class book. Apparently no one's freaking read it, but whatever. World-class book. Gave it to Kev. He came to me behind the scenes. He's like, dude, you think this way? And I kid you not, I said, brother, you don't? What do you mean? He's like, dude, I've never thought about that in my life. I said, well, how do you make decisions? He said, brother, I just feel it. What? You just feel it? Okay, listen, here's the deal. Use your gut with people. Do not use your gut in business. Use your brain in business. Now, here's the problem. Business is about people. When there's business and people that mix, do you listen to your gut or your brain? I used to listen to my brain. It got me in so much trouble because of vibe. So now I listen to my gut with people, my brain with business. If it's people and business, I have to listen to both.
Yep. It's the truth. Yeah, no, that's the truth. Well, speaking of business and people, let me ask you this. It was a perfect segue because business is people. No people, there's no business. The robots ain't gonna buy, at least not yet. Maybe 30 years from now they will.
Yeah. At least not yet.
But today the robots aren't buying yet. We're not quite there. What's the biggest mistake you've made in business that's propelled you forward the most?
Ooh, biggest mistake that's propelled me forward?
Yeah.
Or biggest mistake? Because those are two different things.
It's the biggest mistake you've made, but because that event happened, whatever it is, it catapulted you.
Hired the wrong person. You know how I said I sized you up? And again, you're not allowed to talk about that, but I sized you up in quotes. I have a filter, and I can give it to everybody. I will not associate with anyone who has what I call a high UnMedzi score. And I made this up. This isn't online or anything. I have it written over here, UnMedzi. Unstable, naive, manipulative, entitled, delusional, significance-driven, arrogant, and immature. So if you have a high UnMedzi score, you and I will just do this. Because I'm going to give a lot of truth, and you're not going to be able to handle it. Mm-hmm. And I just realized I have my absolutely people and my absolutely not people. So this is what I say now. I say, if you are humble and grateful and you have a sincere interest in truly contributing and reaching your potential, you're going to love me, you're going to love NLU, you're going to love us. It's going to be great. If you have any level of entitlement or spoiled brat syndrome and you want big rewards for minimal effort, do not reach out under any circumstances. Because I'm just going to be a pain in your ass because I just don't believe in arriving. I believe in striving. I believe so deeply in striving, not arriving. I think arriving is entitlement and inflated self-worth, and on the golf course, like, yeah, I don't know if you know what family I came from. Like, listen, I lost 3 families at the time I was 14. I started from nothing, and so did Kev. Like, we are the ultimate tryhards, and we don't like that attitude of thinking you're better than people. And because of your last name, like, I'm not interested in working with people who who just think they're better than other people and who aren't willing to work for what they earn.
Yeah.
I had one person in her early 20s, I coached her, and I actually adore this person, but she said, Alan, honestly, I'd be disappointed with your numbers. And I'm sitting there going, we're like 30 times more successful than you in my head, right? I didn't have the courage to say it at the time. And she said, well, Alan, I'm not interested in trading my time for money. And I was like, you're 24. What do you mean? There is no one on earth who doesn't trade their time for money. Even Warren Buffett has to trade his time to pick the stocks. Like, there's something wrong on the internet happening where people believe. I have a mentor who has 50 million in his accounts who is working every single day. Like, I don't understand what people are talking about. There is no such thing as something for nothing unless it's generational wealth, in which case the wealth is probably going away. There's something on the internet, people call it passive income. Passive income is not passive. I had $150,000 in a Vanguard account when I was 23 years old. Trust me, I had to grind for it. Like, once the snowball is big enough, you can siphon off the top of it. But don't get it twisted. You're lowering the percent growth year over year by siphoning off of it. This whole idea of passive income with minimal effort is mostly fake. And it bothers me so much when people say, well, I want to start a self-managing company. Someone has to run the company. And even if you hire a CEO who's really good, you're still going to have to be on the board of directors. You can't just like skip meetings. And so the investor mindset, I get it, but you're 24. And by the way, she was broke. She could barely afford my coaching. So it's like, why are you saying that now? You're in some serious trouble. You're in Dubai and they're getting in your head. And nothing against Dubai. There's a lot of wealth in Dubai, and some of them are at a place in their life where they can live off their income from their investments. And she's not in that place. Mm-hmm. So it's like, you're 24 years old and you don't want to trade your time for money. Let me know how that strategy works out for you. Because I have people on my team that work 10-hour days for very modest wages because they live in a low cost of living country. And I would put my money on them long term over you any day of the week if you're already done at 24, right? There are no, despite rap and athletes, aside from rappers and singers and artists and actors and athletes, there aren't really a ton of wealthy 20-year-olds outside of generational wealth. And this will be the last thing I'll share. I researched this recently. 70% of the globe's wealth are in the hands of people 50 and older. No one knows that because everyone looks wealthy on social media.
I think I'm going to call the show "You're Not Done at 24." I think that's the title.
If you are, you don't use it, you lose it. That's not good for your brain or your body. Yeah.
Right. I said, even Patrick Mahomes, he's not done. And he's not much older than 24.
I don't even know who that is, but I'm assuming he's wealthy, man.
Big NFL quarterbacks. So, some of these sports guys, now they have these massive contracts and they're so young, and you're just like, wow, it's kind of crazy. But we digress. So, Alan, I appreciate you coming on today because I know you got a meeting coming up. So I appreciate you taking the time. And to everyone here, check out Next Level University. He's got the podcast out there. You can go to the website. All the links will be below. I encourage you to check it out. If you're interested in coaching with Alan, here he does it. Give him a call. Reach out to him, and it might be a great fit for you. Just be ready for the truth, because he's all about truth, and I love truth because we need more of it in the world. So I appreciate that message. Alan, thank you for being on the show today. I really appreciate it. Can you leave us with a final word?
Thank you so much. This has been tremendous. I appreciate the safe psychological space for me to be myself. And if anyone does reach out, everyone needs an engineer in their corner. And I'm leaning into that. Reverse engineer your goals. That's my main primary skill. And thank you for having me. I appreciate it. The final word would be, if you've gotten to the point in your life where you're sick and tired of looking for quick fixes that never work. I remember when I was a little kid, I bought something called the Banjo Minnow. Do you remember the Banjo Minnow? Way back?
feel
You ever
like
do
I've
any fishing
heard of
back in the
that,
day?
but I don't know. Maybe.
I think it was late 90s, early 2000s, and this was back in VHS tapes, and they had these infomercials of the banjo minnow, and they must have been starving these fish or something because they made it look like this thing. I grew up on a lake, and I loved fishing, and they made it look like this banjo minnow was just going to make you an ultimate bass fisherman. And I caught one fish with the banjo minnow. It was most of the things that sound too good to be true are. There's always a catch. Don't look at just the top of the iceberg. You gotta look beneath the iceberg. Yes, someone has a brand new home that's multi-million-dollar home and they have $1.5 million mortgage. So with an interest rate that's probably 7% right now. You gotta understand the numbers. You gotta understand the top of the iceberg and the bottom. And you gotta understand the compound effect over a timeline. Here's one tiny takeaway, because I know I gotta jump here in a second. Age. Age matters. What is impressive at 64 is not as impressive. What is impressive at 24 is not as impressive at 64. The risk tolerance, what you do and don't do, everything changes based on the season you're in, based on the goals you have, based on the context of your life, whether you have children or not, whether you have a mortgage or not. So when you see someone on the internet making a certain choice that might be smart for them, it might be really reckless for you. And you got to be very, very, very careful of who you allow to speak into your life.
So, so true. Well, Alan, thank you again. I appreciate that word, and I look forward to continuing the conversation.
I will come back anytime, Frank. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.